To the Goodmoves webinar, where we'll be looking at career opportunities in housing. This session has been recorded with only presenters visible on the screen. If you have any questions throughout the session, please use the question and answer function. Answers will be given either at the end of each presentation or at the end of the full session. I'm Mary from the Goodmoves team at SCVO, and I'm joined by my colleague Francis. So the Goodmoves is a recruitment website run by SCVO for the charity and not-for-profit sector in Scotland. We advertise around 100 jobs on the website per week. We also provide information on the variety of careers in the sector and how to access different jobs and volunteer opportunities. We do this by attending different events across Scotland, producing reports and any additional resources that we think might be helpful to job seekers and recruiters. These are like these kind of webinars and case studies, etc. So today's webinar is focusing on housing, which is a large part of the charity and voluntary sector in Scotland, with various types of organisations providing affordable housing and supporting local communities. They do this by building new homes, investing in existing ones, running community services, and offering wider charitable services, such as regeneration and support for vulnerable people. So to help you get a better understanding of the housing sector and the type of roles available, and also how you might get involved, we're joined by speakers from this sector. Just to introduce our first speaker for today then, we will kick off with Claire and Alex from Cassiltoun Housing Association, who are going to give us a bit of background about the organisation, and Alex is going to give us a run through of her kind of journey into the sector. Thank you.
Okay, I'm just going to share my screen. Alex, do you just want to mute while I speak? No. So hopefully everyone can see the slides. I have been asked to kind of talk about my career in housing, basically where I got to, how I got to my sort of chief exec role, and just to touch on the work that Cassiltoun Housing Association do to promote sort of careers in housing. So black and white slide for the very first one, but obviously I'm not really that old. But so like most people in the sector, I fell into housing as a career. When I was at school, I got asked the usual questions about what do you want to do, what do you want to be when you grow up, and I think when I was very young, I think I said a farmer. When I was in my teenage years, I loved a show called LA Law, which is like an old version of Suits, I guess. So I talked about being a lawyer. Housing wasn't on the radar. Nobody talked about a career in housing. Even though my family lived in social housing, there was no thought about moving into housing as a profession. We had careers advisors, and I remember filling out kind of all these little quizzes about your sort of personality profile, and top of the list for me came out prison officer, and obviously that wasn't a career I wanted to go down, but there was no real discussion or awareness about work in the housing sector. But my sort of I suppose the roots of my journey into housing and working in the sort of charity and voluntary sector started when I was 16, when I, alongside my school, I completed what was called a Youth in Action project, where for 2 years, between the ages of 16 and 18, I did a whole raft of voluntary work, working with conservation charity, a children's charity, and also supporting a youth worker with a young woman's youth group. So I suppose when I look back at my career path, that's really where my interest and love of working in the charity and voluntary sector came from, because I really enjoyed making a difference to people, making a difference to people's lives, which is what housing is all about. When I went to university, I was the first person in my family to ever go to university, and again, a housing degree, diploma wasn't really discussed. So I picked to do economics. The only reason I picked to do that was because that was the subject I loved the most at A-levels. I thought it was going to be an easy subject for me because I really enjoyed doing it. But while I was at uni, I was quite fortunate to be able to carry on sort of my love of sort of volunteering. And I worked in a plastics factory every sort of holiday from uni, doing double shifts. So that meant that the time I had free at uni, I was able to carry on the volunteering aspect of the work that I enjoyed. And I helped to kind of run an Oxfam shop 2 days a week, and did loads of campaign work for Oxfam. So again, that thread of working in the voluntary and charity sector carried on up until I was 21. When I was 21, I moved to Scotland, and again, I thought I'd be able to easily walk into a job in the charity sector, but again, I wasn't connected. I had no networks. I didn't really know where to look for work in Scotland, apart from in the Herald in those days. And I didn't get a job in the charity sector, but I ended up getting any job. I was looking for any work at that point. So I ended up working for the Department of Work and Pensions, helping people in London actually with their benefits. It was a sort of phone consultation. So I worked there for 5 years, and at the end of my time there, I decided that I wanted to move from, I suppose, finding ways of not paying people benefits or cutting people's benefits, to using that skills and knowledge to help people access the benefits they're entitled to. And that really was my leap into housing. I was looking for any job as a welfare rights officer. And the organisation that was advertising at the time was Link Housing. So that was really my first experience of working in the housing sector. And I loved my time at Link. I helped set up their first welfare rights service. I grew that service, and I was fortunate to work under a really, really inspirational chief executive at the time, called Craig Sanderson, who was very passionate about sort of the wider aspects of the housing movement, about social enterprise, about things that delivering things that were more than just the bricks and mortar, which I really enjoyed, and was really able to kind of start my career path off there. And they're a very supportive organisation, as most landlords are. So they helped me actually do a master's in law, focusing on social welfare law, which I studied at Link and continued when I moved from Link to GHA, again to set up a welfare rights service. First time they'd had one. So alongside 8 other people, we started delivering a welfare rights service for GHA tenants, which was pretty tough gig. But again, I sort of learnt the ropes between going from a geographically spread organisation to one based in Glasgow, but which had a massive stock size of tenants. From GHA, I moved to my current employer. I moved in 2007, again to Cassiltoun, again to set up a welfare rights service here, alongside 2 other landlords here that I helped set up welfare rights services for. So moving from a geographically spread organisation to a huge local organisation to a very small community-based housing association. And I think for me, that's where I found my niche. I love working in community-based housing organisations. I love working at Cassiltoun. For me, it's that direct contact that you have with your tenants. I'll walk out of the office and see tenants on a regular basis. It's that quick pace of change that you can make if you're working for a small organisation. You can be very responsive and in tune to what your community needs. So for me, I'd kind of found my housing home, I guess, at Cassiltoun. But alongside the welfare rights work delivery that I was doing at Cassiltoun, I was also expanding my own sort of professional development, my career. So alongside that, I was also delivering working freelance. And I wrote a number of best practice guides, or co-wrote them. You can see there on the slide. Benefits guides. I was also speaking at conferences and delivering training for the Chartered Institute of Housing, SFHA, and the National Housing Fed, and in England, and also going down to England to deliver training on welfare benefits and welfare law. So at that point in my career, I was thinking, well, do I step out of working for a housing association and focus on being a consultant and going freelance? But again, my pull for working for my current employer was very strong, so that kept me working at Cassiltoun. As well, at the time, I was campaigning, doing lots of campaigning work for the sector on bedroom tax, getting asked to speak at various Scottish Parliament committees on the impact of bedroom tax. So again, for me, it was being able to feel that I could have an impact on on behalf of the sector on what was going on in the wider world. And I think housing is such a critical part of the economy. It's a critical part of our social fabric, that it is a career where you do really feel you can make a difference to people and feel that you can influence things that are going on through the sector, influence decisions that are made about people, for people. Latterly, working for Cassiltoun, I was fortunate enough to get a new role and get promoted and take over the wider aspect of the Housing Association's work in terms of its regeneration. Cassiltoun is well known in the sector for all the vast amount of community work that it delivers. We've had a community team here really since 2010. We have delivered the regeneration of a historic building, which is the stables, which you can see, which delivers a whole raft of community work. We have worked to transform a local park, which is owned by the local authority, from an absolute no-go area to somewhere that is loved and respected by everyone in the community. And we've also set up our own social enterprise nursery, as well as delivering the whole range of community events and activities and programs, from digital to oral history groups to Thursday feeds. I guess you name it, we do it. Which leads on to where I am now. So in 2019, I was fortunate enough to get the post of Chief Executive at Cassiltoun. I have never been so proud. Actually, after I got told that I got the job, I just asked if I could go and hug the board, because I really felt that they had supported me to develop in my career, so that I was able to make that step. Really feel proud of leading the organisation as Chief Exec. And I remember at the time that lots of people were not surprised that I got it, but I suppose surprised because I don't come from that traditional housing background. You know, I've not been a housing officer, not been finance, I've not done development, and a lot of chief execs at the time had come through those sort of traditional routes. So it's quite unusual for somebody to come through the sort of regeneration wider role arm to take the helm. But Cassiltoun has that sort of broad aspect of work that it's delivering, that it was a good fit. So I continue to look at how I can promote careers in housing. I've been very passionate about that as a Cassiltoun over the years. So I've been working recently with SFHA and CIH on a website about your career in housing. That's got loads of really good examples from some of my own team members and board members, but from across the sector, about all the different careers you have in housing. Again, people often think of a housing career as just being a housing officer, but you know, there are careers from finance to corporate to HR to digital to apprenticeships in plumbing. You name it, the housing sector has got it. So there's a career for everybody. So again, as I move forward, and the association's mission and my mission again is part of our role here is to promote that route into housing and promote housing as a really positive career choice for individuals. And we do that here at Cassiltoun by offering opportunities to people, from volunteers to work experience, working with young people returning to the workplace, older returners. We use our community benefit clauses to encourage our contractors to take on employed places, and we also promote it with our local schools and local youth organisations. We've had many people over our time here, over my time here, that have got work with Cassiltoun or have learned and trained and developed at Cassiltoun and gone on elsewhere. And one of them is on the call with me today, and that is Alex. So I'm going to pass it over to Alex, and she can give you a wee brief overview of how she started here at Cassiltoun. I'm going to try and stop screen sharing. There we go. And we're over to Alex.
Hello, I'll just quickly share my screen with you. Oh. Can you see that?
Yes, we can, Alex. Thank you.
Perfect. So I'm Alex, and I also work at Cassiltoun alongside with Claire, and I'm the receptionist. And I'll just be going over how I got here, part of my story as well, because I didn't necessarily go down the traditional route for housing either. So how did I get here? Originally in school, I did not have a clue what I wanted to do. I didn't have too much of an interest in school either. I did not like the whole sitting in a class and writing loads. So I had a million and one ideas on what I wanted to do, and very similarly, housing was not one of them. I did not come from an area where social housing was always the most respected, because you never heard about all the good stuff that they do. So I left during my 5th year, which was also the year that all the schools went online for COVID. And I went and did an apprenticeship in social services, children and young people, which was learning how to be a nursery teacher and stuff like that. And as much as I learned loads from there as well, it just wasn't for me. And I did loads of other wee things that just didn't feel right until my friend had sent me the advert for the apprenticeship at Cassiltoun, which originally she actually sent me to be the technical apprentice, but I accidentally applied for the wrong one, which goes to show how much that I knew, and I ended up doing my apprenticeship in business and administration, but within the advice team and the services team, which was your rents, estate management, antisocial behaviour, and as well as money advice, so welfare rights and benefits, and completed that, which you can see here, and I learned a lot. And I also learned a lot about housing itself and got rid of the stigma of what I felt for housing and everything else, and decided that that's what I wanted to do, that was my thing and my niche. And then about a year and a half ago, once I'd finished my apprenticeship, I got offered the receptionist role. And as you can see there, that's my big smiley face at the reception desk, which is actually under technical. So I do a lot of the typical reception stuff, but I've also pretty much had a taste of everything that you could have within housing due to my apprenticeship, and also taking on that role within the technical department. So on top of that, I'm also going to discuss what a receptionist is, because I feel as though there's a million and one different roles in housing that you can go on and do. There's so many options, but within those options, there's so many different things. So of course, there's also your typical receptionist role that you would think of. So that is that I sit at the reception desk and I take in any income inquiries, whether that be through phone, email, and also in person, and make sure that all of those inquiries are taken in, get as much detail as possible, and then it is shared throughout the association to the relevant people. Part of that as well is making sure that everybody's up to date on what's going on in the association, and that's not just staff, that's tenants and service users. That's making sure that everybody's aware of all the things that we do in the community, alongside like our clubs, the Thursday feed, stuff like that, and making sure that that's all out there and all that information's there. I also mentioned that I'm within the technical department, so alongside all the receptionist roles that I do, I also do taking in all the inquiries for the technical team specifically. So that is also putting through those first line repairs, making sure that they have as much information, and also speaking to our contractors and making sure that our contractors are up to date, that I'm getting up to date stuff about the repairs for our tenants, assisting and arranging the gas servicings and stuff like that, which again is not something I ever thought I would be doing. I went from being a 16-year-old schoolgirl that didn't know which one to do, that couldn't find a niche. Never in a million years would I have thought that I would be liaising with contractors, discussing repairs and stuff like that, because it just was not on my radar at all. And now looking to the future, I'm looking to expand my knowledge in the technical department and move on up and get promotions and stick within the social housing sector, specifically within the technical department. And also telling people about what they can do in housing. Again, there's so many options and there's so many different niches that you can find within that. And that's me, and I'll pass that on to whoever is next.
Thank you very much for that, Claire and Alex. Very interesting. And I noticed that there's some additional information there, Claire, from the website that you provided in terms of the career opportunities and different types. So that's really interesting. That'd be really good for people joining us at the moment, and then obviously who watch the webinar in future. Very interesting career paths as well there. That's fantastic. I don't think there's any questions, Francis, is there?
There is one question. Claire's typing an answer, but might as well just say it out loud just for the benefit of those who might watch this later on. It's from Aaron, who's a career advisor supporting students and graduates at uni. And he often hears the phrase, "I don't know what I want to do, but I want to do something to help people." So he was just asking, Claire, what would you say to folk in this kind of context to encourage them to think about a career in housing?
Well, I'd say, housing is the perfect vehicle for that. As Alex said, it offers such a broad range of job opportunities, but certainly, every person in my organization, from my HR corporate department to my finance department, are actively involved in helping people. Obviously some more than others depending on their job role, but so from the frontline staff, that's a day-to-day job of helping people. But our finance staff, they roll their sleeves up and they pitch in and help deliver holiday programs for disadvantaged children, or community events and activities. So housing is a perfect career for you if you want to help people.
Thank you very much, Claire. Okay, so moving on then. Our next speaker is Gary. He is from Elderpark Housing Association. So I'll just let you pick up from here, Gary. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. So as Mary says, I'm Gary Dale. I'm the Chief Executive at Elderpark Housing Association in the beautiful location of Govan, and just in Glasgow. So I've been Chief Exec there for 7 years now, and we're going to go way, way back to 1992 in my origin story, and talk about careers in housing. So way back, it's a tale as old as time, as they say. So way back to 1992 when Beauty and the Beast came out in animation, I realised today. So back in 1992, I was what you would call a disengaged school kid. I was told to sit very much at the back of the class and be quiet and not disrupt anybody else, because I like to talk. Which is something that's led me well as my career's progressed, which is interesting. I maybe picked up on some of the things that I think maybe you at certain points in your life become a success at other points in your life. So back to the 90s, way back then, I was probably not sure what I wanted to do, no idea what I wanted to do. Sat at the back of the class, told to keep quiet, been suspended from school for talking too much, a little bit of a troubled influence that, and my friend, who was again not sure what they were going to do, got offered a YTS, which was the forerunner from Modern Apprentices. Anyone that doesn't know, look up YTS. It was a great old scheme back in the day. It was a youth training scheme and very familiar with modern apprenticeships. So I turned up, full fit and suit on, wondered what was happening. Didn't know what the job was for, didn't know where it was for, didn't know what it was going to do, didn't know what was involved, but it was going to get me £30 a week. Yep. In 2024, £30 a week back in 1992 as an apprenticeship was still allowing me to go to the pub 2 or 3 days during the week and get through the days. So it was sufficient to earn money. So I then took up this trainee scheme, and it turned out it was a housing organisation in a local authority, in Hampshire Council, and no idea what I was doing. Turned up on the first day, looking about for my workplace, because I've never been there before, wondering about the centre of this, what would be called the private area, and seen a set of porta cabins. And inside those porta cabins were my new colleagues, and very intimidating, very scary as a 16-year-old, almost turned 17, with no idea what was going to happen, no idea what the role was going to be about. And I suppose if you're looking at career advice, what you find out, is the people that you meet along that journey that shape what you do. So every career that we have is their story is different. They may have a lot of the same principles in it, but they all have different different paths, different roads, and I think there's that, what is that, no wrong path that's often talked about, and it is very much so that you will potentially find yourself in different environments, different roles that work for you, and you tend for, so 16-year-old, started at YTS, there for 2 years in a housing or a local authority housing department, learned how to deal with challenging behaviour, learned how something was a vocation, learned how those things around being part of a social justice environment role was really what made me passionate, what made me happy. But unfortunately, times were tough, and at the end of my apprenticeship, I was sent on my way to somewhere else. And it took me about another 18 months or so before I got another opportunity in the housing sector. So 1994, started in Scottish Homes, and then progressed, and then progressed, very fortunate, and was able to go to things at university and do an MBA, do a degree in housing, was able to move through the career path from what was a clerical officer right through to where I am today as a chief exec in a different organisation. I'll talk very briefly through that, but there's certain key points. I don't want to tell you my story as such. I want to maybe pick up on things that are relevant to MD's career, I think, hopefully, and it is. There's certain key things that will happen in your career journey that will happen for most of us, and it'll be less about the job you do sometimes and more about the people that you meet and what influence they have on your job. So you will have, hopefully, at some point, mentors, people that develop you, people that support you, people that encourage you to do more than you knew was potentially possible. And sometimes, in fact, often those people don't know that they're even doing that. So Alex talked maybe about Cassiltoun. There'll be people in there that don't necessarily know the influence they have on our career just because she observes them, just because she sees how they do and they see the path they've taken. So you need a good bit of luck. You need you need a lot of people that want to support you. You need an opportunity to then take that forward. So I was able to, as I say, quite early on, I realised that housing was a vocation I wanted to do. And I then became a very annoying and quite frustrating colleague when I look back at the clerical. So Alex, as you are just now, basically what I did is every day I would go and annoy the chief exec, tell him what I think we should do to run the organisation better. And I was very fortunate that the chief exec was quite willing to listen to me as opposed to tell me to go back into my box, as she quite possibly could have done. But what she did is give me autonomy to create and develop myself, develop the organisation, and actually get involved in things that were able to make me grow as an individual. Now, whether that's because she's seen the potential, whether that's because I was committed to myself and even to learn, or whether it's a combination of all those things, I'll never really know. But I think some of it was certainly about being in that environment was what gave me the career I have today. And I guarantee you that I would not be in that position if it wasn't for the people around me that helped me develop that. So once I got into housing, I was able to then go and do further education, a thing that I never thought was going to be possible. I certainly didn't look from the very working class background I was in. University wasn't an option, and I suppose I've got 4 kids, and I tell my kids a lot that the path that you lead, you don't need to leave school and go into university, which seems to be very much the way nowadays. That people's perception is that that's what we need to do. There is often another route whereby you can start a career and develop your education, develop your learning through that career. If you find the right career, the opportunities are quite limitless at times. So I was fortunate, like others, I got to go and do a degree. Actually quite early on, that opened my eyes to a big wide world. It allowed me to learn about education. It allowed me to do things that I didn't think were possible. Again, through the support of the employer. And then from there, it's very much step-by-step journeys. You move through different roles, you move through different areas. You get given things. I mean, I moved from housing officer to service development manager to director of corporate services to director of finance. And funnily enough, I was thinking about this in this story. By the age of 29, I was a director within the organisation, which I thought at the time took me ages. But when I look back at it now, it's quite young, in terms of the sector as a whole. But I was very impatient. I was determined I was wanting to become a chief exec as very quick as was humanly possible. Just it was maybe an imposter syndrome or some other things that I wanted to achieve things to maybe make up for some of the things I failed at when I was younger. So I, by the age of 29, was working as a senior member of staff. Quite naive, probably look back, and never forget how much experience has in it. You're designed to make mistakes when you're younger, Alex. You will make lots of mistakes, and if you don't make mistakes, you're not doing your job right. It's about learning from those, and hopefully each of those mistakes what develops your career and helps you grow as an individual. So back in 2017, I was then fortunate to become chief exec in an organisation, and what I would say, I've been rejected so many times, both in work, also in life, sadly, but I've been rejected many times. I think I would suggest some of the key skills for anybody looking at career in housing or a career anywhere is that know that rejection is going to happen. You're going to be knocked back for jobs, you're going to be knocked back for opportunities, you're going to be told no. Lots of different occasions. It's like the old Chumbawamba song. I get knocked down, but I get up again. Do you know if you recognise that line? Do you know people's careers will thrive the more they're happy to make mistakes and learn from the things they don't get right. At some point in time, and it was the case for me, in 2017, the stars aligned whereby an organisation had the same values as me and me was at the right stage of my career and the same values. Both we were a perfect match for each other, and I joined Elderpark as chief exec. Now, I look back at all the other opportunities I didn't get and realised they wouldn't have been the right opportunities for me. Sometimes they were the opportunity in front of me as opposed to the right one. And it's fascinating actually learning as you develop. Hindsight's a wonderful thing to say. As you get older, you learn a lot about the things that happen in your life, and you realise that they are meant for a reason. All these stupid sayings, things only happen for a reason. They're all true because they happen that way. Back to 2017, became chief executive of Elderpark. Again, knew nothing, and the MD tells you, as Claire will tell you as well, the MD steps out chief executive always thinks you know everything. Talking nonsense. You learn on the job, you learn through talking to others, you learn from mistakes, and you develop your career that way. And then you get to a point where hopefully whereby you're in a circle where you've done a lot of things, you've made a lot of mistakes, and you've learned, use that experience to not make them the second time. So just before I finish, in terms of careers, I've been thinking when I look back at those 30 years, you know, what's the kind of key things that start to jump out to me? People, as I say, mentors are crucial. The right people help you develop. Find somewhere that you're happy. Find somewhere that people will grow you, and you will achieve the most success. Look to educate yourself. Never stop learning. You know, if you should always be looking to learn and grow and go and do as many courses and go and do as many things you can, because they will help you become a more knowledgeable and skilled person. Don't think it's a linear path when you've got a career. It's a lot of it's luck, a lot of it's a thousand different paths you could take, and you end up hopefully finding the one that eventually works for you. But you will take lots of wrong turns. It's snakes and ladders. You'll jump some ladders and you could down some snakes, but you will find your right path along that lane. And have ambition, be resilient. You know, be determined, be committed, be annoying, be focused, be all those things that you want to be, because only you will make your career come the end. It's not there for somebody else to sort it for you. It's up for you as an individual to grow and try and seek out those opportunities. So, like any career, housing is a vocation. Housing is somewhere where social justice, dealing with people, focus on community, it's somewhere that give interest in social work, play, health, any of those caring professions. Housing is one that you can fit into. As Claire said, there are lots of opportunities. And once you're in, the opportunities are endless, which is probably one of the things. And there's a career path that many would don't have in the sector. So I would recommend it to anybody. I'm fortunate that was therefore successful as a tell my daughter. And she finds it hilarious from a big small pond, and a very, very small pond. And she finds it amusing. It's a great sector, it's a great opportunity. You get to meet people. Seen Claire a couple of days ago. I'll no doubt see her again next week. And we'll very closely again in something that actually matters to a whole host of people. So thank you for your time. Hopefully it was useful, and enjoy your own path.
Thank you very much, Gary. That's great. So yeah, I think we can all get that it's a great sector to work in. There's so many people who are willing to support you, and there's different ways into the sector in terms of entry level or apprentice, YTS, the good old YTS back in the day. Yeah, so I think we ourselves as Goodmoves do, when we're out and about, we're speaking to people, we do hear a lot from people saying that they're always getting to interview stage, and it doesn't matter what sector within any sector, and it's the lack of experience, but it just shows that you can get there, you can get an entry, and it's even we always say an entry level job such as admin, because that way you're going to learn more about an organisation, you're going to be able to network with your colleagues, learn more about the sector you're in, and also gain that that knowledge, experience, understanding, which is definitely going to help, and some transferable skills, and move on through your career path and help you to decide what route you want to take in that career. So that's absolutely great. Just before we move on, so is there any questions, Francis, for Gary?
No questions, no.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you very much for that. So, just leading on from the kind of support available experience, how you can get into different careers within the housing sector. We have Ray from EVH, which is Employers and Voluntary Housing. The a different, slightly different look on the housing sector from Ray's perspective in terms of how they support the organisations in terms of the recruitment, and she's going to give us a little bit of background information on that. Thanks, Ray.
Thanks, Mary. Hi, everyone. Yeah, I'm Ray Carmichael, and I joined EVH in the recruitment team 23 years ago. So I'm not going to talk about my career because it's pretty much been spent the whole time at EVH, which has been great, and we've seen lots of developments over the years. Lots of things have changed. EVH is an organisation that supports housing organisations throughout Scotland. We do that in many ways, but the only one I'm going to talk about today is recruitment, because that's what I've been doing and that's what's most relevant to everybody that's watching. And I'm just going to attempt to share my screen now. 1 second. Okay, can we see that? Can everybody see? Can you? Yeah.
Yes, we can. Yeah, thanks.
So part of the service we provide at EVH is both to employers who are our members and also candidates. So we help people who are looking to secure a job in housing. We do this really in 3 ways. The first thing we do is most housing associations throughout Scotland will advertise their vacancies with EVH. So this is just a selection of the current vacancies that are available at the moment. So there's, as Claire and Gary have said, there's a huge range of different posts within housing, and this will just give you an idea of what is available today. So as you'll see, we also advertise voluntary board members. Those vacancies are voluntary, but they help shape the housing sector. So loads of vacancies from director, manager, housing assistant, customer services, property officer, maintenance, project coordinator, tenant engagement. There's so many different roles within the sector. What I will say though, from a recruitment, and my job at the moment is helping people get work in housing. I deal mainly with temporary vacancies, which I'll speak about in a minute. But it can be a different sector to enter, really. If you've got no housing experience, it's really difficult to get a job in housing, unless you're going in at apprentice level, or unless you're going in at maybe finance or customer service admin positions. Without housing experience, it is really difficult. So my advice would be, if you are looking to enter a career in housing, like Claire and Gary said, it's good to start within a customer service admin assistant role. And like Alex said, that gives you a whole overview of the organisation and the different opportunities available within that sector. But if you don't have housing experience, what do you do? If you're applying for vacancies and you're not being successful, we do offer temporary employment. So many people that are looking to work in housing but don't have the experience will register with us for temporary employment. And I hope this works. Before I start talking about temporary employment,
housing and voluntary organisations with temporary staff. And they've got loads of great roles that you can register for, from receptionists and admin roles to finance assistants and many more. The perfect role is waiting for you. Download a form and register at evh.org.uk and find temporary work with the support of an amazing organisation.
Clyde One loves EVH. Find out more at clydeone.com.
We were quite proud of that advert. We realised a few years ago, probably for the last 2 years, we've been doing all we can to encourage people into the housing sector because there's more jobs than there are candidates. So we designed this Clyde One advert to hopefully encourage people to register with us. So that went out this summer. We didn't get one person registering with us. So we're like, what else can we do? So we've liaised recently with Stirling University. We've tried to contact Glasgow University. We've been to numerous jobs fairs, but we still don't have enough candidates. We've got more temporary vacancies than we do candidates. So if you are interested in working in housing, I would really encourage you to register with us. All the information is on our website, so I'm not going to go over everything, but what I would say is keep your expectations realistic. If you have never worked as a housing officer, we won't be able to get you a job as a housing officer. All the temporary vacancies that we fill, experience is essential. And the reason for that is most organisations are quite small, and usually the need for temporary cover comes from sickness absence. So they really need somebody who can start as soon as possible and go in and know exactly what they're doing. And that's relevant for all jobs other than admin, customer services or finance jobs where housing experience isn't essential when you're working in a temporary role. But we did realise that we had quite a few candidates who were really motivated and were registered with us and applying for vacancies and not getting them because the organisation chose somebody that had housing experience. Even if it was for a receptionist role, we were really struggling to assist candidates with securing employment. So just recently, we've developed a work experience programme, and that is for people who have a desire and are motivated to work in housing but lack that experience. It's very early days, but I'm hoping that that will help anyone that wants to work in housing to secure a career in housing. And I think I'm going to stop sharing the screen. And that's me. Back over to you, Mary.
Thank you very much, Ray. That's great. Any questions, Francis? For Ray?
Just one in the chat from Anne, who's asking, what if you want to return to work, having had a career in the private sector, but want to give something back and help people?
Okay, I'll take that to everyone. Anyone?
Do you want me to answer that? So again, I suppose it depends on what your skills and experience are. So, you know, if let's say you worked in a finance private sector, then there could be vacancies in the finance team or HR, for example. But we've had people who are returners to work, and they'll come in and they'll do some voluntary. They'll volunteer with us for a period, and that gives them a taste of what working in the housing sector is like. So we've currently got somebody who has been out of the workplace for a couple of years, who is coming in 1 or 2 days a week and just picking up some aspects of learning about sort of the housing services team actually. And again, that's just giving them a flavour of what's it like to make that decision about whether they want to then invest time and go for a career in housing. And again, most housing associations are always really grateful for volunteers to come in and will open their doors to give sort of work experience to people. Gary, I don't know if you...
Yeah, it's probably similar to an extent. I think, you know, you've got to be honest and say that you're in any competitive market, a lot of time people look to take the slightly safer option. So if there's people, I think as Ray says, if there's people with experience in the sector, they often have an advantage in any role in any sector. I suppose that's the case. So I suppose it's about expectations. What are your expectations of what you want to achieve? Now, I done interviews last week for something, and one of the things that shone through was a person's passion and commitment. But there was other candidates that various other things that made them the right one at the time. But I did a feedback and discussion about, you know, if you're willing to maybe start at a different point, the opportunities will be longer, and you will probably achieve a higher point you would have done if you went through a different path. So I think I suppose it's about knowing as an individual, involving individual circumstances around what we can do, what we can't do, what our financial impacts are, what our family commitments are, all that stuff that goes with it. But if you, I don't say a lot of people, if you're willing to start at the more the administrative level, which is pretty decently paid, has to be said, there's a real quick career path, particularly at the moment when there's a real gap in the market, as Ray say, across a lot of jobs. There's quite a quick path to do it. So a lot of speculate to accumulate, I suppose I would say, for some.
Ray, do you have anything to say about that?
Just about returning to work after working in the private sector. Yeah, just like Claire said, it will depend on your previous experience and your skills match. And if you want to register with EVH, then please do.
Yeah.
We also provide like careers advice, and I'll do everything I can to help people get jobs. So.
Thank you. From a Goodmoves perspective, we do speak to, as I said, we do speak to a lot of people, and it is about, you know, some people are not aware of the sector and as a whole, and for us it's about changing perceptions about the sector and about, you know, how, you know, the great roles that are there, you know, the many organisations that have core business functions and they need the staff to provide those, to fill those posts, and then obviously the service delivery roles as well. And I always speak to people, you know, it doesn't matter what sector you're coming from, there's going to be transferable skills there, there's going to be something that you can bring, and there's some experience there that you can, you know, some organisations might not know that they need the skills you have. So yeah, there's always something there. So yeah, that's great. Well, that's fabulous, everyone. I don't know, is there any more questions, Francis, just to see if we can answer any?
Yeah, Maria's asking what is the name of the company that is great to register? I would presume that's Ray, EVH. Yeah. And are there many opportunities to get started with no or little experience in the housing sector if you're only available to work part-time?
Okay, so I think Ray, is it EVH is the one to register for the temporary vacancies, yeah?
Yeah. What I would say though is if you have little or no experience, it would depend on what experience you do have.
Okay, and as I said, the experience can be matched or transferable or the same as your skills. Okay, anyone else want to answer on either of those?
I suppose,
Okay.
you know, just reading the question obviously about part-time, you know, do you know, and yes, I think we all understand that often part-time opportunities can be challenging to get because there's often full-time roles that are advertised. I think as a sector, we are wholly committed to flexible working. Most organisations have significant numbers of people working flexibly, whether that be part-time, whether it be condensed hours, whether it be different things. Now, I'm not going to sit here and lie and say that the jobs are all advertised part-time, because that's not the case, and Ray will confirm that. And that's sometimes part of the problem. It's about getting into the role, and then the flexible working kicks in. Same thing with legislation. But I think I would always ask the question, and we do regularly ask the question, if somebody put out jobs, somebody get in touch and ask if it's part-time, and then often sometimes the colleague comes to me and says, would you consider it part-time? And my words will always be, if it's the candidate looks as though they will be an enhanced organisation, they will enhance it to organisation, they would never exclude anybody. And I suppose that's the only thing I can say.
Yeah, I suppose to add to sort of Gary's comments, I mean, I know lots of people who work in the private sector or even in other parts of the charity sector, but you know, I found housing associations to be very flexible. You know, we have flexi time, we have, you know, organisations have hybrid working. There's some organisations who are now doing 4-day weeks. So you know, in terms of part-time, then you know, there is, as Gary said, the request to go flexible working, or some bigger landlords often have like job share posts. So there are opportunities, but the flexibility that the housing association sector provides is massive. I had a meeting with a member of staff the other day who's come back from maternity leave, and she was just again singing the praise of the organisation because of the amount of flexibility she has, and it's helps her to sort of juggle sort of work and home. So and in terms of experience, I would say, you know, as colleagues have said, you could have transferable skills, but you know, if you've got the opportunity, maybe try and get a little bit of experience, either speak to Ray, or again go and do some volunteering in your local organisation. And you know, we have a whole raft of volunteer sort of posts that you know, they're not necessarily volunteering to be a housing officer, but they're coming in and volunteering at different aspects of the work that we deliver, and it gets you that in to say you've been doing that at a housing association.
Thanks, Claire. Okay, so one of the other things I just want to highlight, that the sector itself is very, very supportive, as Gary had mentioned previously. And, you know, organisations, you can approach them, pick up the phone, send an email, you know, there's nothing wrong with that. Your interest is appreciated, and they'll support you if they can, or point you in the right direction. So don't be afraid to pick up the phone and just ask. Okay, so I think that's kind of wraps it up for today. That's been absolutely great. Thanks very much to our speakers. I hope that everyone found the session as interesting as I did. I found out a lot of things I didn't know. So that's great. There are resources obviously available. Don't worry about if you haven't been able to note down websites and things like that. The recording will be emailed to everyone, and it'll also be available on the advice section of the Goodmoves website. If you've got any questions you think of after this webinar, you can email them to the Goodmoves team via the contact details on our website, or you can reach out directly to speakers via their own websites and social media channels. If there's any questions we've missed, we'll get a reply to you as well. So let's wrap up for today. As I say, thank you very much for joining us, and have a good afternoon. And that's us. Thank you.